back in the early years of Federation, with bipartisan support, a system of compulsory universal military training was introduced for all young men. It wasn't especially systematically enforced, but it certainly was a way of reminding everyone that they had to give back to their country. I suppose in those days, more of us were able to ride a horse and fire a gun than is currently the case. More of us lived the resourceful, outdoors, rather tough life that from time to time soldiers have to lead. But we were vastly better prepared. We had, thanks to Deakin and Fisher, we had a powerful squadron of the Royal Australian Navy that was admittedly at the disposition of the Admiralty when war broke out, but nevertheless HMAS Australia was one of the most powerful ships afloat back then. So we had 2 submarines at a time when almost no one had submarines.
Just stop and think about the significance of that for a while. We were just a little country of 5.5 million. We were only 7 years old when Deakin and Fisher jointly determined that we needed to go down that road. That fleet, as you say, with submarines, there were 2, but there were meant to be 6, just that they weren't able to be built before the war broke out. That was Australia on a bipartisan basis, not being left or right, not talking about do we only need to argue about quotas or about where we position it. It was saying the world is becoming a dangerous place because of superpower competition. It's unstable. We need to be able to secure our homeland. 1 million people lined the foreshores of Sydney Harbour in that fleet.
Welcome the fleet into the harbour, correct.
And a year later, people forget this, it secured the Southwest Pacific, our home, from the Germans, who had a massive naval presence and other presence in the Pacific. We celebrate Anzac Day, we forget. It was only possible because we'd secured our homeland. We don't even talk about securing our homeland today.
No.
I'm a farmer, as you know, always interested in agricultural issues. Why are we not up in arms about the fact that governments have not stockpiled anything like enough fuel, fertiliser, which we insist on bringing in from offshore, even though we should be making it here? That's just one aspect of security.
We don't even have a plan. I mean, once upon a time we had a war book that was as late as the 1960s. We had a war book, so Mike Pizzullo reminds us, which was regularly updated, basically talking about what would the country need to do, and what does the country need to do now, and what might it have to do down the track in the event of a very serious military threat requiring some kind of a mobilisation. We certainly need to be thinking much longer and harder about what are our military requirements, what are our civil defence requirements, what are our continuation of society requirements in terms of the sorts of things that we have to be able to make here, the sorts of things that we need to stockpile here, the sorts of things that we are prepared to rely on our friends for, the sorts of things that we are prepared to just find as best we can from the wider world. I mean, these are all the vital pieces of analyses which a serious country would be engaged in right now. But even to talk about them would be regarded as great political folly, because these are perils which I think the general view would be become more likely if they're talked about. So instead we take the ostrich approach, which is just stick the head in the sand and hope that the danger goes away.